Okay, what's going on, guys? We're going to go over custom tactics today. What do pros use? You see the FC Pro, the Pro events. What formation do pro use? Are they using some secret formation? Are they hiding their tactics? Which is another question I get asked a lot. We're going to go through all of that in today's video. Now, there's a couple of things you need to know. For those that are not really that aware of the pro scene, there's certain formations that can't be used. So even though, for example, formations like the 3-5-2 and the 5-2-1-2, which in my opinion are some of the best formations inside the game, especially the 5-2-1-2 specific scenarios, they can't be used on a professional scene. This is more than likely because of the 5-4-1s, even though this is still a very overpowered formation. This was used heavily last year, so now on the professional scene, they've nerfed all 3-back and 5-back formations. So although you guys can use it in FUT champions and rivals, even the tournaments that you may play, as long as the rules stipulations allow it, those formations aren't on the official pro scene. That is why you're not seeing any pros use the 5-4-1 or the 3-5-2 or the 5-2-1-2. It's not because they're not good, it's because they're banned on the scene. Now the difference is, don't forget, on pro level, tactics are very different. You know, a lot of the time you're gonna see this is kind of comes in. We'll go which is the best tactic in a second, but we'll go over, for example, what people don't understand about the pro scene is that they genuinely think tactics are going to save them. Now, I'll give you an example. The most common comment that I get, and you guys know, I call someone, if someone says something incorrectly, I call them out on it. The biggest question I get is, Neil, your tactics don't work. Of course, I know it works for everyone, 99% of people, but that 1%, 0.1% say it doesn't work for me. You have the best tactic in the world, but if you run out, if you have your, let's say you're winning, or let's say you're up against your opponent, right? And let's say, for example, you use a tactic and you run out with a centre back, you are going to lose regardless. I don't understand how people don't get this. It's like if I give my grandma a Formula 1 car, does that mean she's gonna win the race? No, of course not. You have to understand how to play the game, at least on a base level. Unfortunately, most people don't know that. In fact, perfect time to plug in my Patreon. So if you want to get better at FIFA, come to my Patreon. So it's patreon.com/no guys. We teach you the basics for not just for any FIFA, or not just for F24. For all FIFAs, that way you get better as a whole. Money back guarantee. That's why we run it with a money back guarantee, because we know if you follow it and you do exactly what I say, you're guaranteed to improve. Absolute guarantee. But anyway, patreon.com/no guys, links down below in the description. But going over, as I said, so no, they don't lie about their tactics. People always ask me this question: are pros hiding something? No, they may. This is what you're going to see 99% of the time, something like this, and maybe a higher depth. Something or some sort of variation of this is what most pro tactics would be. I can almost guarantee you, because they don't need to use a defensive style. They can all use a team press D-pad tactic, or they manually press with teammate contain themselves. Now maybe you don't, maybe you might need it, but they don't. Even 71 depth, yes, is effective. That's where they use it, but they don't need to use it as much as you would think. It's the same with build-up play. This is why I say long ball. Now, long ball is not just thrown there because I want to be different. No, when I first started talking about long ball, everyone's like, what are you talking about, Neil? Even pros use long ball now. It's because it pushes L1 triggers forward. But a lot of the professional players, when you're playing inside the game, it's a bit different. You know, when you use long ball, sometimes you want players to come short. They don't always want them to go forward. They'd rather control it with the L1 and the R1 buttons. R1 to bring a player close and L1 to push a player away to create space. They'd rather manipulate that themselves, as opposed to relying on AI to do it constantly. Now, maybe for you, even a rank 1 player might need long ball, but for professional players, it's completely different. But the most common chance creation you would see in a professional scene is direct passing and forward runs. Those are the two main ones. You may see the odd person maybe use balance, but that is probably very rare. It's either going to be forward runs or most notably direct passing. And that depends on what formation and stuff like that. Now, going over to tactics, I don't want to make this into a documentary because sometimes I end up going a tangent, end up making a 20-minute long video. I'll be like, Neil, can you just shut up and get to the point? So let's just go over it. So 4-4-2 is probably alongside. I'll go through the top 3 first. It's definitely the top 3 formations. It's definitely the best pressing formation inside the game. In fact, if you look at my tactical setup, my tactical layout, I use the 4-2-4. Now, this is, so the 4-2-4 basically is a 4-4-2, but just more attacking. You see some pro players use it. I think, I'm not too sure, I think Gorilla might still use it. I'm not too sure on a few other pro players. But he did use it last year, but don't quote me. That's, I kind of got the idea of the 4-2-4. I was actually watching Gorilla stream for a bit. Just went in for like 10 minutes. And I just thought, why not try the 4-2-4? And I kind of got inspired by that. But yeah, the 4-4-2. So, not the CDMs. This one is a bit better for pressing. It works very well with a high depth. It allows you to be high up the pitch and allows you to press. So this is probably the most common formation you would see 4-4-2 defensively. Although for the average player, this can be very difficult. The reason for this is, number one, when you're defending, those two strikers a bit too far away. So there's a lot of don't forget, a lot of these pro players, they manually bring back the players. So they basically have everyone on. Normally will be some sort of getting behind and come back in defense for both of them. That's the only downside. And there's no cam. There's no link-up play. So you need to play this it's a very high-level formation on the pro scene. But you'll be able to find the pass with your centre mids. You've got to need 2 box-to-boxes. But the lack of cam, you've got to push a player forward from midfield, for example, to make up for that. So that is the reason why on the professional scene, if you give a pro a 4-4-2 compared to, for example, when you use like Anders, the way he uses a 4-4-2 is completely different to even some of the other pro players. So those are just something to mention. So 4-4-2 definitely goes up there. The best formation, without a doubt, is the 4-3-2-1. In fact, it's a bit of a glitched formation. I kind of mentioned this before in some of the videos. When a fullback goes as well, it kind of makes an overload, like, you know, because you end up having like 3 players on one side on a more basic level, 3 versus 2, because most people are playing a 4-4-2, so you got left mid and right mid, so you can kind of go through those that side, so you can easily double up or triple up sometimes, or have a 3 versus 2 down the wing. And of course the opposite side is sometimes glitch when one of the players goes forward. So definitely probably the most effective formation, 3 players, strikers inside the box or narrow. You're not going to see 4-3-3 on the pro scene. I'm sorry, you're not going to see this on. I mean, maybe there might be a few players, like I'm talking about like 1 player, but let's be realistic. You need to have more than 1 striker. You cannot, even in a top tier elite division, you cannot have 4-3-3. You know, as I said in that 4-3-3 video, it might work for you like in division up to division 2, but unless you are a top tier player, playing this formation is very difficult because the left wing and right wing. For the average player, they're just too wide. They're not involved in the play. You're going to have the ability to use them, bring them forward, creative runs, and use these players effectively. So the 4-3-3 isn't, but the 4-3-2-1, because you have narrow. See those 3 players? If you think about a 4-3-2, when you play it, those 3 strikers, they're very narrow. It's close together, almost similar to like a 4-1-2-1-2. So this formation is very, very effective. But you can see how there's a crossover between the 4-3-2-1 and the 4-4-2. Because what the pros do, and you might have seen in some of the videos, is that they will defend in the attack in a 4-3-2-1, but they will defend in a 4-4-2. And the reason for this is when you're on the defensive phase, out of possession, the 4-4-2 is so effective at pressing the ball and winning the ball back. And then when you're attacking, you then convert into the 4-3-2-1 phase. You will know what I'm talking about when you watch that 4-3-2-1 video. Have a look at the Anders one, the Mark Marley's one as well. But that is basically the way that it is. So it's probably the most, I'll probably say the most efficient formation, technically speaking, on the pro scene. The most popular, it's one that 99% of pros use as their main formation. It's either the 4-4-2 or the 4-3-2-1. But you have to remember, at this level, it's more of glitching. You know, you're looking for that trivela, you're looking for that finesse, you're looking for that cutback. You have to understand, some of these pros don't even make that much money. You know, people have this misunderstanding that some pros make like 100k in like a couple of months. This is like the top tier players, you know, like the rest of them, some of these guys don't even make a living. Most of these guys are students. You have to understand this. So only the top tier players, and it's kind of top tier players of everything, every sport, every industry will always get played the best. That's why the Messis and the Ronaldos, the Mbappes will always get the most amount of money in the industry. Same way, for example, maybe your best head teacher at your local school will get about 100, well in the UK I think head teachers like 100k a year, 80 to 120, depending on what they teach, even in the state school. But yes, so a 4-3-2-1, and then you have, for example, a 4-4-2, probably the most staple ones. Formations like the 4-1-2-1-2, they're not as much prevalent. There's more of like unique play styles. You know, maybe back in the, I think, what's that gentleman's name? He's from Canada. I forgot his name. He's a pro player. I forgot his name. But he plays the 4-3-1-2. So some of those unique players that play these formations just kind of like expertly used it, but again they would still use the 4-3-2-1. The 4-3-2-1 and the 4-4-2 probably some of the main formations. And then you'll see, for example, variations of it. So the 4-4-2 is basically the same as the 4-2-4, but someone may prefer, for example, the 4-2-2. You've seen Tex, you've seen some other top tier pro players usually like the CDMs and then like the cams instead of the wingers. So that's where the variations of it come in. But you won't see, for example, I mean, 4-1-4-1 is actually a very good formation defensively, but you won't see this to be used the entire game. And then, of course, the one that's always going to be there, doesn't matter, I can close my eyes, any FIFA, any FC, this formation will always be there, the 4-2-3-1. Very balanced, very defensive. It's kind of, the way you got to look at this formation is identical to the 4-4-2, except for you have a striker and a cam as opposed to two strikers. So this is why if you struggle with that link-up play, that cam will help you link up with the striker, and then you can always trigger players forward if you want. The reason why this formation is so powerful, though, is that you have the Lamb and a Ram, and then you have the two CDMs. I'll tell you something. A lot of people, when they're new to the game, they struggle with this formation because the sole striker. But as you get better in the game, you'll use this formation more and more and more. The two CDMs, and then the cam, and then the striker. This is very important because when you're defending, you can basically defend in a 4-2-5-1. There's no other formation that kind of gives you that, apart from like the 4-3-3 second variation, but then you lose the attacking threat, you can say. So this is a combination of being very attacking, but also defensively secure. And that is why it's probably been up there every single year in, year out at some of the top formations inside the game. But those are definitely the top 3 formations that professional players use. But anyway, I just hope you enjoyed this video. To give you a bit of an insight, people have been asking me that question watching the FC Pro Open. I see some variation. You might see a few other things like the 4-1-2-1-2, but again, those are very unique cases. You're talking about 1 out of 50 pro players will be using that as their main formation, if not even less, at the tournament. Maybe like in a tournament of 60 people, maybe like 2 people might use it. At max, I would say 1 probably, as their main formation anyway. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget, if you want to get better FC, come to my Patreon. So it's patreon.com/NoGuide to actually make videos on chance creation, when to pass, how to look for the striker, when to look and when to make the triangle passes. Link is down below in the description as well. Thanks for watching. Take it easy, and I'll catch you next time. Peace out.